I don't believe it. That's Clone Force 99.
This is Wrecker, Hunter, Echo, Tech, and Crosshair.
Obviously, we are different.
We're all you're getting. Ha! We're all you need!
They call themselves the Bad Batch. Experimental Unit Clone Force 99. The defective clones with desirable mutations.
This is one meeting I don't want to miss.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Dad Batch podcast. Today's episode is Galaxy of Hope, an event in support of Starlight Children's Foundation. My name is Stevie Kicks, and I am your host in the pilot seat today. And you know I can't do it alone. With us, as always, the other Dad Batchers, your space daddies. First up, he's our Chrome and Go expert, but he's your hunter. It's CX42685, John Rodriguez. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Nice little stumble, but you recovered, so we're good. Everything's good. Happy to be here.
Awesome, man. He's the commanding officer of the Southern California Garrison. It's BH12530, Ramy Shanaday. How are you, sir?
Hello, happy Saturday. Good to be here.
That is a fine shirt you've got on.
Yeah, my good friend had these made. They're really nice.
Super limited edition, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You know him as Tech.Bad Batch, but I know him as the Sour Patch Kid. It's CX20209, Joe Lara. How are you, man?
Dude, I do love me some Sour Patch, and I'm starting to see them at more troops now. People are taking tons of photos, and these things are showing up everywhere. It's a thing now.
You're like the official sponsor. It's unbelievable that they don't sponsor you yet.
It's all good.
Lads, we've got company.
You want to sit with us? That's never happened before.
He's worked on a broad and diverse range of genre, series, and features, from Once Upon a Time, The Expanse and The Boys, to Night at the Museum 3, Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters, and Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. But we know him best for his concept art, direction, and design for Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic. With us in the Marauder today, it's the one, the only, John Gallagher. How are you, sir?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for having me. And first of all, dope intro. That's a banger. Yeah. I'm here for it all day long. I just wanted the extended dance mix.
Right?
We can
Send you the track.
we can help you. We can help with that.
I'm here all day. I was just like, God, that's snap.
We're just here to listen to music. Yeah.
It bops.
Anyhow, yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm apparently in the middle of riding a wave of beautiful and grateful, well, my gratitude anyway, a wave of nostalgia for Knights of the Old Republic in its 20th year, and it's been remarkable. Little did I know.
Get ready, because like nostalgia has been so hot these last, I don't know, these last 5 years. Nostalgia has just been an industry unto itself. And now that KOTOR, is it okay if I call it KOTOR?
Oh, please do, yeah.
So now that KOTOR is hitting that 20, that's the sweet spot, because for like the next 10 years, it's just going to be like in your face. It's going to be coming back. You're going to see like all the cosplayers are going to be all over it.
And I'll tell you, John, I'm a day one KOTOR player. I got it back in the day on my laptop, my PC. Who knows what it was running back then? And just personally, I'd like to say thank you for your involvement in that, and what it's shaped into since. So I appreciate that, and I know a lot of other people do. So thank you.
Well, I get that sentiment. We didn't have with KOTOR, and I think there's an advantage certainly in the nostalgia tunnel. If we have one one obstacle that we didn't have to overcome was that there was really no universal disdain for what we did. Like, we didn't have to bring fandom around to love what we did. In the case, for example, of the polarized, but largely seems to be moving towards sentiment take on the prequels in the Star Wars original 9. So I think there's an advantage here, because nostalgia, pure nostalgia, undiluted nostalgia, doesn't have responsibility. But I feel like we were responsible as custodians of the property, that we don't have to surmount fan hatred, which I'm sure you've probably noticed, Star Wars can be particularly vitriolic. So it's a circular firing squad at the best of time.
Star Wars fans polarizing.
Star Wars fans?
What?
I know, it's crazy. But it really is a circular firing squad at the very best of times under optimal conditions. So we were very, very fortunate that our game was released to a welcoming public, and as opposed to violently oppositional or having no time for us. I think the worst thing would have been indifference, above all other things, would have been if we just released it and it was like a turd from a tall cow and it did nothing except splat. And I mean,
but it did quite the opposite, though, I think.
Well, and we didn't have any of we just created what we'd always created. It's something that we wanted to play. I mean, we had a very simple marching order. It wasn't convoluted or esoteric. I mean, the marching order was simply, would we only create games that we want to spend 100 hours with? And that's a big ask in a relationship, especially a part-time stolen moments relationship that most gamers have, where they're trying to fit it in to their lives. And that time is precious and rare. And if you insult them by releasing a garbage game of a cherished franchise, it's the last time you're doing it.
Yeah, it can backfire for sure.
So, I mean, we really had our work cut out for us. And mercifully, luckily, fortunately, I was surrounded by geniuses that made the impossible plausible, and we managed to pull it over the finish line, which to this day I continually am astonished. You're launching Apollo missions effectively every 2 years, because there's so many factors that have to dovetail for a game to even come together. Never mind pass those milestones of be relatively bug free, be engrossing and compelling, and above that to be exceptional. These are a number of nearly impossible elevations to hit. And like I said, I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by a team of geniuses that made it all look easy. And I was just very fortunate I was a participant, of course. I'm not going to say I was a passenger, but I was a core participant. But you look around and it's handled. By that point, we just looked around and said, this squad is a death squad. Like, we are, this shit is handled. It wasn't a case of, where you had a few weak links in the chain and you're like, oh God, we're going to get murdered when it comes to this or that. Everyone by that time was 10 foot tall and bulletproof,
Wow.
So we were very, very, like, it hit for us in terms of our development as a studio and as creatives individually. It hit at just a chef's kiss, perfect time. It could have gone either way. As you know, there's so many harrowing tales of games that, even Star Wars games.
When did you know you had the
1313 that just died? They're like beautifully deep into development, and just it colossally shifts.
Oh, that was a shame too, because we were looking forward to that as well.
Of course. I mean, it would, by all accounts, even with my minimum insider dope on it, it would have been a game changer, I think, for the Star Wars universe. And it just didn't have a combination of the capital, the political will, and the faith of the franchise holder. there's a lot of shitty things that were in play there, and they're all unfortunate because the developers. I always side on the side of developers. That I know enough people in the game still that it's never a question of them not caring, or going to the next mile, or going to to the furthest reaches of their abilities. I can say that on my daughter's eyes. That's never been the case, at least in my experience, directly or indirectly. Now, it could be the case in some, big cynical bullshit IP puppy mill company, but at least for BioWare, that was never the case for us. It was like a mission, and the mission was to deliver the definitive. Hopefully, for some people, it seemed to do that. And
Yeah.
what an honor to have my name attached to it. At least, some gigantic turd. Hey, so you worked on that unbelievable piece of shit. I'm like, well, hell yeah. Yeah, I did all the cool concepts. Concepts look like dog shit.
John, let me ask you. Gosh, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but if you can remember back to 1999, right? So Phantom Menace had just come out. It's like the hottest thing. I mean, it's literally everywhere. You got Pepsi cans with Anakin's face on it.
Yeah.
And Star Wars.
I remember it vividly, actually.
Yeah. Lucasfilm approaches you guys and says, we want to make a Star Wars game.
Right.
Now, I've heard the rumors that they wanted you guys to create an episode 2 game.
That I can neither confirm nor deny. I wasn't part of those conversations. By the time it got down to me and the core team, we had a choice between Star Wars and a Sega bootleg bullshit, fucking forgettable mascot game of some kind. And they said, well, guys, let's vote. And it was like 75-0. Or pardon me, there was one oppositional programmer, because programmers, there's always that guy. I'm the contrarian. And I was like, you know what? Someone kicked that motherfucker out the door. So anyway, we that's as close as I was to the beginning of that conversation, was that it had already been a formal offer had been tendered by LucasArts, and it was to do an RPG. Now, I had never ever once with Hayden or Scott had ever heard that it was going to be an episode 2 game. I had never heard that at all. But again, the ecosystem of rumor is enormous, and that may well, in fact, have been a conversation at some point with somebody, but not with me.
Well, I'm glad you guys went the way that you went.
Well, I couldn't imagine doing a fucking episode 2 game. How lame would that be? Good Lord, no.
Well, because KOTOR was so epic in a lot of ways, and especially the thing that stuck most with me was that they're still not doing in today's games is that you got to make your own character.
Yeah.
And the plot twist at the end when you find out who you are, that
actual plot twist that didn't stink.
And it was a surprise. What? You never knew until the end.
My name's Revan Skywalker.
I think the potential, at least for us, I think what I've noticed in the meantime, in the intervening years, is people often have asked me, as being a part of it then versus looking back in retrospect now, why hasn't the franchise, especially in the hands of Disney, who are notoriously looking for every opportunity to slap something on a Slurpee cup, why haven't they explored the Old Republic, aggressively explored it as a potential outgrowth for the franchise? And they has the usual nonsense, and you could confirm or deny this. It's depending on who you've talked to and if it's qualified information or not. But the idea was that they wanted to finish the 9 films first as their grand vision. Clearly, there's no grand vision, but that was the grand vision, was to finish the 9 films, and then they would start doing adjacent exploration in the universe, which is the biggest fucking cop out. When you have a franchise that's established is when you take chances with it, not when you play it safe. And
Right.
that was our point. Our whole point all along is that if there had been an offer to make a game that was running parallel to the Skywalker saga in the same era, we wouldn't have done the game, because there's nothing to sink your teeth into.
There's nothing there, right?
It's just another insipid walkthrough. So Ray and Greg were very particular about that, well, it can't happen with Skywalker because everybody's hating everything to do with that right now. It's just a sludge dump. Like, we don't want to go near it. And James and I were talking about it along with Kevin and Lucas and a few others. And we just said, well, why? They cracked the light barrier 20,000 years before Star Wars. So why don't we do something way back when? The only thing we've seen for the Old Republic are those shitty Dark Horse comics where there was like wooden ships and sails and shit. And, due respect to Dark Horse, I mean, it's not like we're ever going to work together. But what the fuck? What do you fucking think? No,
I have a few of those. I have a few of those.
Thinking
John loves them, by the way. John
They're fine.
John Rodriguez.
Yeah, they're okay. They're
His favorite.
Love the all your heart and soul. Please do. Like, you're allowed.
No, I don't love them.
But I just think
They're your favorite, John. You talk about them all the time. Every troop, you say, "Oh, look at this one. Look at this one right here."
No. Yeah. But we'll have some more questions for you, John, as we move on about where these, I guess, characters or where this storyline or timeline is going from now that we're getting a show like Acolyte, and there's some Revan rumors floating around. So we'll get into that maybe.
He's smiling
a little later down the show. Yeah.
He knows.
Looks like he knows something.
He knows something.
There it is.
We'll get there. We'll get there in a minute. But
He signed an NDA. He can't talk about that.
Listen,
Steven, did you want to?
By the way, I have not signed an NDA.
Exclusive.
That's a running.
Exclusive.
Yeah, that NDA thing.
It's all work for hire. So it was fire and forget for me. I am not a cherished citizen in the Star Wars universe, according to Lucasfilm.
Well, to us,
People
you are.
ask me, well, are they gonna hire you to work in the movies? It's like, bitch, it doesn't work like that. Like, not even close does it work like that. They don't.
Right.
They're not going to take me on like a victory tour. Like, they're like, one more time around the around the yard.
That's awesome.
I don't have that insider privilege. That, I mean, I could probably.
You do.
I guess.
You do.
I mean, to a degree,
A little bit. A bit.
I do have certain connections that are pretty rich, but I don't have, and this is hand to God, I do not have any information about a Darth Revan movie or any shit like that.
We'll get your opinions in a little bit. We don't need
sure.
we don't need
Opinions are
actual
different. I'll
factual stuff.
qualify it.
I want to know what you think about certain things. So
Which
we'll
I will
get
take
there
as fact.
soon.
I will take that as fact. I mean, it's an opinion.
Well,
but
yeah, if it's coming from John,
Yes,
it's got to
sure.
be important.
It's the internet. Feel free.
it's
I'll
out
just say
there.
it with confidence.
Yep.
And it immediately becomes fact.
All right, Steven, do you want to
That's
take us into the next segment?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. If you'd like to rep your support for the show, pick up a Space Daddy shirt or some stickers at thedadbatch.com.
This garbage is nothing like clone armor.
Looks a little tight on you, old man.
Yeah, at least I know how to wear it.
That's right, everybody. It's time for the weekly workbench. All right, gentlemen, who is working on what?
Well, let's break it down for John a little bit. John, this is a segment where we talk about what we are building in terms of costumes and props.
Right.
All of us are prop makers in our own right. And every week we've got something we're working on or something we want to share to the people who listen. So at this point in time, I wanted to ask you, do you build costumes or props or anything of that nature?
The closest I come is that my daughter works at a kind of a threshold 3D printing lab. So we're working together on some new models. I do have an HK-47 statue coming out from Dynamic Menace. It's going to be a limited edition. It's based on the print I just recently did. So that's the first and only, I think, HK-47 that's been done.
We're gonna need 5 APs on those, please.
Yeah, we're gonna need a few of
Yeah,
those artist
for real.
proofs.
5 artist proofs.
Right, right. But to answer the question more tacitly, no, my daughter is the fabricator in the house. She's not in the house at the moment, but she
We were
is
gonna say bring her in.
fabricator and the cosplayer, and
Nice.
everything
Okay.
that I lack in tactile. So I'm a pretty good sculptor, and I'm pretty decent fabricator.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, don't have those chunks of time that I would need because I'm pretty obsessive. So I have to meter out my time.
I'm not sure if this guy looks familiar to you or not.
Oh yeah, I know that dude. I got one.
You know
of
who that
those.
guy is?
He's got one in his
Yeah, I get Revan gifts all the time.
Oh, nice.
And the
Lovely.
saber.
Lovely.
John, you're burning your hand right now and you don't even know
It's okay. It's
Oh, it's not
taking
real?
space.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. All right.
we're good. We're good. But yeah, okay, right on. So your daughter is the costumer and the builder.
My daughter is the fabricator, and she's exceptional. She works in makeup effects in the film industry, and she just absolutely slays it because she's
That's awesome.
meticulous
Right
and fussy and likes like deep fan cuts on everything. So if there's supposed to be a little bolt out of place that someone mentioned on
She
a
makes
message
sure.
board 10 years ago, that's now part of the canon conversation, she will make sure that that attention is brought to her final work. In fact, because of her incredible ADHD brain, often things that I miss in my work, in a superficial way, not like in the global sense, of course, but very much in minutia. She'll be like, maybe it could be like,
And John, I wanted to ask you this. This isn't a costume question, but I wanted to ask you how you feel about seeing the HK style assassin droids in Ahsoka now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Are
those 87s? Are those?
It is a different
They
number.
haven't. Yeah, they've been calling them HK assassin droids. So I don't know if they're designating a number or not. They might have, and I might have missed it. But I wanted to hear what how you feel about seeing something like I guess like your legacy or parts of you in
ideas,
the
right?
Star Wars canon.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Star Wars has always been a first come first served dog's breakfast anyway. It's just an orgy of ideas. I think it's kind of fucking cool, to be honest. I mean, just in and of itself. Because even if I saw Darth Revan on screen, I'd be like, that's awesome. I wouldn't think that's awesome. I designed that guy. I would think that later. But,
right.
It's not as if I'm going to get a boilerplate credit or anything. It doesn't work like that, especially in video games.
No, but, in your heart, you know what you did and you know where you were when these things were, thought up. So
I think it's a pretty fascinating relationship to have with, because coming from video games, there at the time when I was doing all this stuff, and now more so, for example, with the Baldur's Gate series, where you see, Minsk, Jaheira, and Saravak, who I all designed, are in Baldur's Gate 3, but they're created by a next generation of talent who just elevate it way past anything that I ever did. And it's a bit like when Johnny Cash sang "Hurt." That was no longer Trent Reznor's song, even though Trent Reznor in Nine Inch Nails, amazing band. Right. Even Trent looked at it and went, "Wow, that's not my song anymore."
It's his song.
So I feel the same way with a character like Revan or a character like HK-47, which while I was there at the origin, I feel like they're their own grown-ups. And when I see a costume, like when I see a Darth Revan costume, it never fails to thrill me, in that deep cut nerd way, because that's what you dreamt of, right? Like when you're a kid and you're just doodling away, drawing, you're like, yeah, I can totally see this, this dude wearing this costume. He'd have boots and he'd have a jacket, whatever the character is. And then when you see it fully realized by gifted craftspeople and cosplayers, it transcends the idea of what we normally do, which is we're kind of locked at our tables and we draw our pictures and they go off in the world and they're animated and they're textured and they're models. This gives it a whole different experiential pocket in which to enjoy the work in a way that I never would have thought of. I would never have thought, hey man, like but that being said, when I've worked on shows and I design a character and the actor walks in and goes, "What do you think?" You go, "Oh, that's cool." But I tell you what, though, I didn't give a fuck about that character 20 minutes ago. Like it wasn't.
But now that it's in front of me in the flesh, it seems to mean a little
Star
more.
Wars
I guess
it's different. It has the advantage, and this is the thing that's why this fucking franchise gets away with so much, is because it has the advantage of core memory for us. At least for me, it gets the exemption. Like it's allowed to cheat on me, even though it's breaking my heart. It gets a free.
You still have love for it, yeah.
I really do. I have way more love for Star Wars than I do any sort of contempt. It's also not mine; it's the world's. So,
right.
Good point.
I guess my lens is I love seeing that under any condition because wow, I feel like maybe I got a little doodle in the corner of this massive universe. I can sign down there with other people who've worked on Star Wars, I guess.
Absolutely.
I'm being informed. Speaking of geek deep cuts, I'm being informed by our research team here that Ahsoka fights the HK-97 droid, which is the red one with the cape.
Gotcha.
And then the other ones were the HK-87s. So
Ooh,
97 was
right
new.
off the top of my head. Off the top of my head.
Look at that.
Incredible visual memory.
It's your thumbprint.
Stable genius right here.
It's your DNA, yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's either that or it's the space that has that information would otherwise, have the cure for cancer were I a doctor. But here I am. I draw pictures and I know the difference between a 97 and an 87. God help me. God help me. What am I going to do with it?
Right on.
Anyway, that's my kind of hot take on seeing all of this. It's extraordinary that anybody spends any time at all fabricating characters that I had a little bit of a hand in. And then when you see the work and it's so beautifully realized, you just, oh, geez. It's like feature.
I have one more question for you, John.
Yeah.
So we don't know if Revan's ever going to make it to the big screen or not, or into a show, or because Acolyte has been very vague about what or who are the characters. But if you could have anyone play Revan with today's actors, is there anyone you would choose specifically? Okay.
Keanu Reeves, 100%. 100%.
Cool.
That for this group here on the panel, that was the right answer.
That was that's what we were looking for.
We approve. We approve.
Is there another answer?
No. We wanted you to say what you wanted to, but we already had an answer in mind. So,
John, we were going to kick him off if he didn't say it. So,
I have the button on the hang up right now on the leave,
eject button, but
we're good.
You did good.
Yeah. We'll just cut the stream,
on, John.
Yeah, you need a combination of a sense of fucking over it, world weary energy, and the ability to handle yourself martially at the highest level.
Basically, John Wick.
Yeah. Effectively. Yeah, exactly.
Saber, pencil.
He's fucking done with it.
Pretzel.
So I can kill all of you. Like there's something that needs to resonate with the physicality of that character, and I think Keanu, not early period Keanu, but Keanu now, who's clearly the savior of the internet and all things great. That mystique that he has as who he is in the public space, I think would really inhabit the character a great deal. Now, that's not something that I planned on. Like when I designed Revan, I was like, what actor is going to be good for Revan? I think it's a case that Keanu dovetailed
came together
with what the character really is, I think, in a lot of people's minds. And I don't care if it's a popular or unpopular choice. I don't give a fuck. Like for me, that's the guy. There's no other person who could play Revan. There would be, but
sure. But ideally, it's him.
Yeah, I mean, if fan casting has any power, Ahsoka, you can be assured that conversations have happened with Keanu's people and Disney if there's going to be a Revan, because they would if they failed that casting. I think it would be burnt to the ground. Effectively, metaphorically, I think
I'm hoping they do call him, because I'm waiting for the stand-in call personally. So it would work out for everyone in general, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, right on.
John, what else you got on your workbench? What are you working on currently?
That I can talk about?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know,
Or even what you can't talk about. Go for
I mean,
it.
Whatever
we
you
don't-
want. Yeah.
It's
Don't
it's just
discriminate
the
here.
5 of us
Okay,
and
here's-
an internet
here's
full of our
a-
closest friends.
This locks in a little bit with Star Wars. Just before the strikes, which of course we're now going into our whatever 77th month or whatever the fuck is going on. The 2 strikes, I was working on the Kurt Sutter series, The Abandons, which is a super violent Western. Takes place 1850. Everybody's awful and there's nothing but mayhem. So that fits perfectly in my toolbox. But the most interesting part is I've never done a Western before. I've only ever done one related to that, and that's a project that I have parked with my 2 production partners. We're working with Roth Kirschenbaum Films, who did The Gray Man for Netflix. We're working with them to potentially do a horror Western series with Netflix. So, but of course, the strike put that on hold. That's all I can tell you. I can't tell you anything more. Tell you what the deal looks like. Can't tell you what the
Interesting.
That's it. That's all there is.
That sounds fun though.
John G's doing horror western, and also the Abandons was great kind of preamble or side development, because a lot of the themes are similar. It's fucking horrifying. It's not revisionist Westernism. It's like how brutal it probably would have been versus the kind of Hollywoodized version, certainly in the early part of the last century, version of what the West might have looked like. Ours is more revenant than it is, Stagecoach 71. So I think for that, also a ton of commissions right now, because I'm just kind of idle a little bit. I'm learning Unreal Engine 5, which is its own
Wow.
monster. It's easy to use, by the way. It's intuitive. The only thing you really have to have is a really robust machine, because it does ask a lot of your machine. But other than that, I mean, if you have for me, for world building, it's extraordinary. So that, and I did this kind of cool thing, and I don't know if anybody follows me on social media. You don't need to. I don't take it personally, but I started doing retcons way back. Here's story time. Way back when I was in art school, 1986, 87. I wanted to be a comic book artist, like a lot of people who draw. Wanted to be a comic artist. And this is just before Image exploded and they all got rich, and we have to put up with them now forever. But back then, though, they were all still at Marvel and DC, or Marvel rather. And it was the black and white boom. So I was doing some black and white books for Eternity Publishing. I sent out a sample pack and they said, "Hey, you want to do some books?" And I was like, "Sure." I had no idea what I was doing. I had no business doing it. And I acknowledge this in myself. I was not ready. I realized it's like parenthood, you're never quite ready, but yeah, you got to dive in. With comics, I think the maturity line's a little clearer. However, you should have a more salient and solvent vision and an approach and a pipeline and a methodology, a way of storytelling. So what I did is I found a website that had all my old comics that I had done there. Like I did 9 or 10 issues, and they're all high-res scans, right? Like the work is just, you can look at how shitty it is. It's just higher res now. So what I did is rather than do, because this is a lot of artists, so I'm going to clarify this for you. They live in abject fear of early work. They don't want it anywhere. Their website is only work they've done in the last 3 months. They don't want to see it. They don't want to sign it. They don't want to acknowledge it. It's like having a bad, like it was like the bad hookup at the bar. She was the last one there. You don't want to share it with anybody. You don't want to ever tell anyone about it.
Oh no.
But you did it anyway. So, yeah, okay, maybe that's a better analogy. I'm sure you guys are going to get roasted for
We
that.
understood what you were going with that. Yeah.
No, I didn't want
We're
to. I mean,
tracking.
I don't know if your audience is PG or not. So, anyway, too late now. So,
That ship sailed.
but the long and short of it is that artists, many have like a bizarre and irrational, totally baseless fear of early work. So I fully embraced the early work aesthetic and said, you know what, we've all gotten better, right? So what I did is I started redrawing those comics as I would do it now. If I had I didn't change the script at all, didn't change any of the shitty dialogue or the terrible exposition. I just said, how would I do this comic now with the tools I have and the speed available and my storytelling abilities? What would it look like? How would it be different?
Yeah, that's cool.
And I encourage any creator at a certain place, if they feel like they've stalled out, or if they're, treading water and maybe not making the moves forward that they want to, and they don't see progress in their work. I didn't feel that way. I felt like I was kind of clocking along and I'm making little bumps as you're supposed to, and I did these exercises. I did one for a comic called Bloodwing, which was this horrible cyberpunk piece of shit. It's sort of a detective story, and he's an operative for a corporation. And remember, this is pre-internet. This is just after Blade Runner. That was the only warning shot over the bow for cyberpunk. That and every heavy metal comic I'd ever read. So I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I felt like it was forming in there somewhere. So I did this 28 pages of that, and that wasn't enough for me. Oh no, that wasn't enough for me. I decided to take on another book that I did called Empire, which was basically a thinly veiled Dune bootleg, but with a little bit different, obviously a little bit different aesthetic.
Poor Dune, man. They get ripped off so much.
Constantly. It's the chosen one. Basically, the kid named Morgan is the chosen one, but we moved the galaxy a bit different. So I thought I'm going to take a shot at that too. And the wonder of this as a learning exercise is extraordinary. It had actually the complete opposite effect that a lot of people thought it would when I told them what I was doing. And it was the most satisfying stuff I've done in years. Honestly,
John,
genuinely, like just a brain melter. It was so much fun.
When did you originally first illustrate those black and whites?
Ooh, dude, 87.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, he's rough.
Was
a minute ago.
Dude, there's a lot of hard bark on this stuff.
33 years?
Yeah.
So what you gotta do now is 30 years from now, do it again.
Oh, dude, I'll be
and then you've got like, the before, the middle, and the after.
I'm not hanging around that long.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I will, and then I'll do it. Like, it's still going.
You still got it.
Still got it.
That's awesome.
Back in my day.
Hey,
so I encourage any artist listening to consider doing something of a similar tact. Like, I think it reminds you of why you made the commitment in the first place. And it's also kind of a nice thank you letter to yourself. You get to sit with yourself. Like the whole time I'm doing it, I thought of myself as 18, 19 sitting beside me and just saying, you know what? This is a terrible fucking decision, dude. What are you thinking about? You go,
that's interesting, though.
I was failing spectacularly in public. And I don't know if many artists coming up these days want to do that. But I had no choice. A glutton for punishment, apparently. And it was just a wonderful exercise. And in the same way, if you're a fabricator, looking back at some of your early work, you're probably like, oof.
I'm having John Rodriguez do that right now. He painted a Commander Grief for me about 5 years ago.
Yes.
And it was like, I mean, I don't want to be
at the time we were like, wow, this is pretty good. And then I saw it like a few weeks ago and I was like, oh my God, dude, let me repaint this. I'm gonna get rid of this helmet, burn it. I'm gonna do a whole new one. I'm already working on it now. And I'm already a million times better. Right. I'm so sorry about that, by the way, Stephen. I can't believe I gave you that thing.
But that's an interesting thing because I was gonna say, John, for John Gallagher, you're it's not even just like talent and skill, it's also your disposition in life, like your experiences and everything. You're a different person now.
Yep.
And
unrecognizably so, I would propose. I mean, a lot of the core values are similar, like a lot of the life lessons that I learned that have sustainable value and meaning and purpose that I can share and bring, like as a father, that I can, instill upon my daughter. She can choose to, go forward with that, with her own version of it, or what she feels like I'll take chapter and verse from the old man. I mean, a lot of the life lessons for her from me were fuck around and find out. In terms of creation, in terms of
in a good way.
Yeah,
that
too. That too.
Yeah, I'm going to qualify that. I'm not a monster. I mean,
right.
I'm a son of a bitch, but I'm not a monster. So, but in terms of how I approached parenting was very much like the world is this bizarre trial and error, cause and effects, substrate reality we all find ourselves stranded in. How about you figure out what works best for you? And I'll provide you guidance and hope and support and love all of my days. And it's the same with her work, because she just did this. And then she just fucking hit the stratosphere a couple of years.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's
like
awesome.
It's shocking, because for me it was comic books that were my gateway drug, right? For her it was anime, and she hadn't really engaged with content up until anime really clicked for her, because a lot of ADHD kids respond exceptionally well to the anime aesthetic and the energy of it. And so her motivation was to emulate and elevate from anime. And it just absolutely transformed her work. It went from, very solid early 20s person's work, like very, on the verge of really good professional work. Her sculpting was impeccable. Her painting is impeccable, but she wanted to be a good sketch artist. And then, because she's demonic in her discipline, just did it. Just sat the hell down, did the work. And as a result of that, is blossomed. It's extraordinary to watch. It's really quite something. And so, yeah, I think sitting with yourself too gives you the opportunity to be kind, because artists are brutal with each other.
Oh, for sure.
And especially themselves.
On yourself.
Yourself, right.
Like you were saying, you cringed at your thing that you did like 5 years ago. Can you imagine the shit you did 35 years ago? Good Lord.
Oh, it was literal poop, probably, because I was
he was in kindergarten. He was in kindergarten.
So you're
macaroni art for Brentford.
I'm 38,
but yeah.
Senior citizen in space. But I think though that it even the stuff I did at BioWare. I mean, here's an interesting tidbit. Speaking of Knights of the Old Republic, if you want to get some original concept art from Knights of the Old Republic, there's going to be a heritage auction art of BioWare coming up, where I have about 300 and some sketches that are going to be available.
Oh wow!
Don't
various meanings and importance.
Don't tell me about an auction.
Well,
Steven has a problem.
I'm going to tell you about the auction because I want you to go there and spend all your money.
Yeah,
but I have.
I'm looking it up.
I had a catalog of about just over 300 sketches of every possible character. I had like 4 or 5 Revan in there too, like variants that we discussed doing, including the pure white Revan.
Yeah,
it was weird. But yeah, there's all kinds, lots of assassin droids, including the original HK-47 sketch that was approved, with little notes and shit on it. So it's a real concept. It wasn't digital yet. So that's coming up probably. I mean, I can't predict when Heritage is going to do it, but by all accounts, it'll be probably before Halloween, I would think, if not soon after. They want to do it before Christmas.
Yeah,
so something to keep in mind.
I will free up a credit card for sure.
Please do. There's lots to choose from. There's ships, there's weapons, there's characters, there's environments, there's all kinds of stuff.
For your information, the stinger of a Yalbek queen is a delicacy on some planets.
So we should probably do this is like a time where we ask questions, John. And so I don't know how good you are, just coming up with answers. And I'm actually taking a page from a really good friend of ours, Mike Forrester, who has another amazing podcast, Armor Party. At the very end, when they have guests, they just start firing questions.
Sure.
So
yeah, I can't guarantee that they'll be safe for work, and I can't guarantee. What I guarantee they will be is hopefully entertaining. That's about all I can offer you.
We figured both. We figured both of those out already, John. We're good.
Possibly, who knows? We'll see. Yeah, fire away, whatever you need.
So it's super simple. Are you a saber guy? If you had to choose, a saber guy or a blaster guy?
Saber.
Which saber?
I want to watch him die up close.
I think his color's red.
What color blade? Red, I assume.
Okay. All right. So you get to choose from any vehicle in the Star Wars galaxy. You only one. Which one are you choosing to be your ride?
Man, I got a soft spot for them tramp freighters. I don't really need a Millennium Falcon, but I wouldn't mind a beaten up old jalopy that I've hot rodded. I think I'm
like an
not
N1.
I'm not a Ferrari guy. I'm like a '69 fastback Mustang guy.
Okay.
I mean, in terms of vehicles,
yeah.
As I said, I have like a state of the art one up there, but it kind of defeats the whole manifesto I'm trying to preach.
Nice. All right, and so you get to vacation anywhere in the Star Wars universe because you've been hustling, you've been working hard. What planet? what planet are you going to?
You know what? Coruscant has enough bad places to go. I need to go to bad places. I don't need to be on a beach in Naboo. I really don't. I need some of
Nar Shaddaa.
Twilight. I need some of that dirty Twilight action.
He wants to visit. He wants to go visit
Nar
the
Shaddaa.
underworld. Yeah,
Nar Shaddaa.
Is that
Nar Shaddaa is like the Blade Runner-esque vibe? Yeah.
The pleasure planet. Okay, well, go there. Forget Coruscant. I'll go there.
Nar Shaddaa. That's it.
Okay, that's where I'm going.
That's where you'll find me.
All right, man. We'll get hammered and we'll chase Twilight.
We'll get some death sticks together.
Let's tear it up.
Up. I'm gonna bring in Raimi now to help me out with some questions here. Go for it, bud. Oh, mute.
Oh, you're mute.
Darn it. I thought I'd make it an episode without doing that. I have read, and this was going to be a part of our news segment, but we're getting pressed for time. So I've read that there is a Knights of the Old Republic remake in the works that Lucasfilm is working on. And it'll be a PS5 and PC exclusive, I believe. Is that anything that you've had any insight into? I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it or anything like that, but
I've not been. I mean, my ship sailed 20 years ago, so I'm a footnote in the conversation these days.
Yeah, but you've certainly left a fingerprint. I would imagine that
your footprint is everywhere, right?
The aesthetic that you established for those characters and like HK-47, for example, and just all of that's got to. I think the Star Wars fans would revolt if there was too much variation taken in that. So hopefully we still see your work. And speaking of, I'll ask my other question. You're speaking of your work. There are some legendary concept artists in the Star Wars world, like, Ralph McQuarrie and Joe Johnson and these guys I'm going to make an observation. I hope this doesn't offend you. I would hope, because of what I'm going to say, you take it as a compliment, because it's meant to be. Like, it looks like your aesthetic really, it's got a lot of feel of that McQuarrie vibe. Between the color palette and just kind of the art in general. What were the Star Wars concept artists or artists in general that influenced your aesthetic?
Absolutely, Ralph.
I
had the privilege of his company.
Wow.
When all the HODs from KOTOR, we got taken down to Skywalker Ranch, and of course, had lunch in the incredible cafeteria, which it's insulting to call it a cafeteria. It's a beautiful restaurant, 5-star, Michelin chef, the whole thing. Wow. Amazing experience. And I had Doug Chang had given me Ralph's contact info, And I gave Ralph a call, and he said, "Yeah, come on up to the house." Like Jimmy Stewart. He sounded like Jimmy Stewart. And so I went up to his place, and getting to spend time with him was a gift that I can't begin to calculate the currency of that, the capital that comes from that. And he was so gracious with his time, and his wife fed us. We sat out in the backyard, and he told me stories about the early days. Absolutely like a true Southern gentleman, you know. And I was just in awe that I was sitting with this, you know, this god. He's on my Mount Rushmore, right?
Yeah.
With Mobius and Kirby.
Mobius. Oh yeah.
Wow.
And,
oh yeah.
Yeah, I think Kirby, Mobius, McQuarrie.
Jack Kirby, Mobius, McQuarrie.
Who else is up there? Me? No, I'm kidding.
Hey, there's my Mount Rushmore.
He's very much in the pantheon, and all I wanted to do, without imitating, was to emulate the simplicity and the elegance, and he had joy in his design too. There was a lot of fun moments in everything he did. He told vignettes and images and so on. A lot of arc welding for some reason. So that comes from his time at Lockheed, or Boeing rather. So I would absolutely want to emulate that. I think in fairness to Ralph's legacy, which is substantial, and it strikes even closer to the heart when I bought his collection, his Amazon only collection, the 2 prestige volumes. Yeah. Amazing. Unbelievable.
It's right under there.
Unbelievable looking through that work. And he just knocked that shit out every day. But Joe, I would propose that Joe Johnston is the single most influential concept designer, even superseding Sid Mead. I think Joe Johnston's work has reached into video games in a way. He's Halo, basically, and Halo is a motherfucking game. His form language found itself into the popular space in a way that maybe Ralph's didn't. Ralph's influence is more substantial amongst concept designers, but in terms of like general public reach, Joe, I would propose, had the biggest impact. But Ralph, absolutely, it was only Ralph. I was looking through that Star Wars Universe book steady, because you have to honor his legacy. Again, the elegant simplicity, the silhouette rule, everything was patched up and knocked together. It was a found universe. You very much had to honor that, and I don't think Joe did in his work. Like, his lines didn't indicate that, but Ralph's very much did, because he came from aviation, so he had a different look, like boots on the ground look for the work. And I like that analog energy a lot. I think video games can alienate you sometimes with clinical form language, which is one of the reasons I thought that Mass Effect started getting on my nerves when I was working on it. Because I was like, can we stop ripping off Sid Mead? Like, Jesus Christ, guys, we gotta do something else. This is boring.
It's another series I played a lot.
Right. No, it has its own place, but it's very much like, I'm surprised Sid didn't sue us, because the art director kept saying, nope, that's what we want, this right here. And I said, that's fucking tough. Like,
it's his property.
Put it through your postmodern filter in some way. But it was absolutely Ralph, 100. Awesome. Not only that, but after meeting him, I was like, I'm going to honor you, sir. I am going to honor you. I'm going to make sure that people know that you are you created a thing that felt absolutely like it had existed long before us and will exist long after us. And not many artists can say that they've created something like, even remotely like that. So yeah, Ralph McQuarrie. That's a roundabout way to say Ralph McQuarrie.
Epic.
That's awesome. That's rad.
Oh.
Okay, so thanks everybody for tuning in. Want to remind everyone that's watching this whole telethon all weekend long, with the Star Wars costume clubs and the like Saber Guild and the performance clubs. Like, we are working to help raise funds for the Starlight Children's Foundation. So Starlight, like if you've seen like the kids that have like the Star Wars or Marvel themed hospital gowns, you know, the Starlight's charter in life is to help make sure that the stay that kids have to make in a hospital is as fun and pleasant as possible. So, you know, we're helping raise money for that. As of right now, we've got just a little bit over $12,000 raised towards our $50,000 goal. And there was an anonymous donor who is going to match that donation, whatever it is, up to $50,000, which means if we hit that $50,000 goal, that's a $100,000 donation to Starlight. So everybody that's watching, I know those of us in the stream here don't see it, but everybody that's watching, these QR codes that are down on the bottom of the screen, those are your links. And there's some for different countries, you know, for US, Canada, Australia, and the UK. So hit those QR codes, get those links, get over to Starlight and make a donation. And Sonfeld and I will be talking about this a little bit later in the weekend, but we've also got some auctions that are running up there, including something that he and I are working on that's special. So check out the stuff on that page in addition to making your donation, because there's some other cool stuff going on in there.
Awesome. Well, I think that does it for us today. You can follow me at stevie.kicks on Instagram, sometimes Twitter. Gentlemen, let the listeners know where they can find you. John Rodriguez.
You can find me at Alpha Ignition on all the socials.
And Joe.
Tech.badbatch on all the socials.
And Raimi.
You can find me at those QR codes on the bottom of your screen right now.
And John.
You can find me at Uncanny Knack on pretty much all the socials. Easy to find.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you again, everybody, for listening to this very special episode of the Dad Batch podcast. Be sure to stay tuned all weekend long for more segments, interviews, and much, much more, brought to you by the 501st Legion and Galactic Senate. And until next time, enjoy your spice responsibly.